اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم لا علم إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم لا علم إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم لا علم إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت الحكيم العليم. اللهم انشر علينا رحمتك وانشر علينا حكمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم انشر علينا رحمتك وانشر علينا حكمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم انشر علينا رحمتك وانشر علينا حكمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. وصل اللهم على سيدنا محمد ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. We finished, inshallah, last week the Badr, and a few things happened. Obviously, the Prophet ﷺ, one of the sad events after Badr is that the Prophet ﷺ returned to Medina and found that Ruqayya, his daughter, had died, rahimahullah, and that was the wife of Uthman, and Uthman had stayed behind, in fact, to nurse her. And so that was a very sad event for her, as well as for Fatima and others. And then he mentions about the returning of the vanquished. Obviously, Abu Sufyan wasn't actually there because he was leading the caravan. He took the caravan back to Mecca. The Abu Sufyan he's talking about here is Abu Sufyan al-Hashmi, who was the cousin, and he's mentioned earlier, was a direct relative of the Prophet ﷺ. And he was very upset about this and began to write poetry. He had written the poetry before that against the Prophet. When he came back, he was deeply distressed about this, and he was passed by, and his uncle Abu Lahab was there, and he called him to tell him to come. And he said to him, you know, we met the enemy, we turned our backs, we fled, and not only were we facing them, but we were facing these men on piebald horses, these spotted horses from the heavens, and we couldn't stand up against them. Now there were two people there, Abu Rafi' and al-Fadl, who's the aunt of the Prophet ﷺ, and her servant, one of Abbas's slaves. And he heard this, and they were both secret Muslims. And he heard this, and he immediately exclaimed, the angels. Abu Lahab was furious and actually went and struck him. At that point, because he was weak, al-Fadl got very upset, went up and smashed the head of her brother-in-law, and actually created a wound in his head, which he will die from. So, really, Abu Lahab is also one of the casualties of Badr, in a sense, because it was a result of them talking about the battle that caused al-Fadl. So now the leaders are basically dead from Quraysh. This was a major event for them. There's only a handful of leaders left. And Abu Sufyan now is going to take, not Abu Sufyan al-Hashmi, but Abu Sufyan al-Amawi is going to take the leadership of Quraysh. They're going to look to him now to lead them. Abu Sufyan also... Abu Sufyan, one of the things that he does is he swears that, one, he won't ransom, and he doesn't want other people to ransom either, because this is a severe loss for them, and also, not only did he lose a son and have a son captured, but he also, as now leader of Quraysh, has to deal with the fact that the Quraysh have lost faith with the rest of the Arabs, because this is going to spread all over the Arabian Peninsula, and they're going to see that the Prophet ﷺ, with really a handful of unarmed people, in the sense that they didn't have chainmail and they were very weak, defeat the Quraysh with all their glory and all their pride. This is something really unheard of for the Arabs. So this is a very serious event for them. One of the things that Abu Sufyan does is he swears off women and he swears off scent, and that he won't wash until he actually makes a ghazwa. And so because like I read at the beginning of the course about Herodotus' statement that the Arabs, even in the Jahiliyyah, were the people that were more fulfilling of their oath, religious oath, than anyone. So he swore this oath, and because he did that, he went on a ghazwa and actually took 200 men. And he stopped on his way to Bani Nadir, and they did not receive him, but another group of the Jews there received him. And then he went and found an Ansari in a palm orchard, and he killed him. And that's all he wanted to do. He went back. He just needed to fulfill his oath, because he said the oath out of rage, and they weren't really prepared to wage war on Medina. When the Prophet ﷺ heard about this, he sent he actually went out with a few hundred people, and they followed Abu Sufyan. And Abu Sufyan, they had these suwaiq, which is a type of qumah, wheat, and mixed with some other things that they use on journeys, the Arabs. And they had several jorab, which are containers for these, and they left them to lighten their load so that they could move faster back to Mecca. And they picked that up, so it's called the Ghazwatul Suwaiq, because that was their booty from that. So they go back to Medina, and the next section that he deals with is about the captives. Now, the captives, in traditional Jahili culture, captives were accepted as a part of warfare between the Arabs. But what they would do is they would ransom the captives. And so somebody could actually keep somebody, and they would decide how much they would take. It was a bartering. And this was honored and accepted as a practice. So the idea of these people coming and literally bartering over their relatives was actually quite common. It wasn't something strange. So the Muslims were not innovating in this at all. And one of the things that we notice about Abbas radiallahu anhu, who's the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, and Abbas says he wants to be let. Now, Abbas was a money lender. He was a merchant, and he made money lending. And he didn't want to give any ransom. And he's obviously the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, so he wants to get out of the situation. And he says, they forced me to go out, and I didn't want to do this, and I didn't want to fight that, so just let me go back. And anyway, I don't have any money. And nobody from Bani Hashim, they've been completely devastated. And he said, I don't have any money. So the Prophet ﷺ said to him, what about that money that you left al-Fadl? You said if you happen to die. And he knew then that the Prophet ﷺ, that it was wahi. Some of the ulama say that he was actually a Muslim the entire time he was in Mecca, that he became Muslim early on and acted as a spy for the Prophet ﷺ. And he does go back to Mecca, and he continues to benefit the Muslims. And then another one, Abdullah bin Jahash, who is going to be martyred radiallahu anhu, in Uhud, he has the youngest son of Al-Walid al-Makhzumi, Ibn al-Mughira. And he wants to ransom him, and they agree on 4,000 dirhams, which was that was a lot of money. And the two sons come to get him. And one of them is a full brother, and the other's not. And so he says, that Khalid says that he won't give him ransom. The full brother says he's only your half brother. In other words, the reason you're not paying up is because, so again, this is appealing to the pride of the Arabs, so he immediately says, no, I'll pay the whole thing. But the Prophet ﷺ says, don't take the chain mail, because Al-Walid, being the head of the Quraysh, actually had an extraordinary set of armor, and this was an heirloom in the family. And so the Prophet demanded that they take that as well. And they were upset about this, but they decided to do it anyway. Now when Al-Walid goes out with them, he goes back to Medina. He flees from them, goes back to Medina, declares his Islam. They come back, they say, what are you doing? After we just paid all this money and the chainmail. He said, I didn't want the Quraysh to say that he just became Muslim to get out of paying a ransom. And again, this is how these people were thinking and understanding. A lot of this is saving face. And this is still very central to, it's central in most cultures, but in the Arab culture, this is still a very strong part of the Arab personality. And so he becomes Muslim. They're obviously furious. And then the other one is Jubair ibn Mut'im, who unfortunately he is the one who owns Al-Wahshi, who will kill Hamza radiallahu anhu. Now he stays there, and he actually admits later on that he was deeply affected by his stay in Medina. This is Medina al-Munawwara. It's a place where the Prophet ﷺ is living amongst them. Revelation is occurring. There's people, they're obviously in an extraordinary spiritual state, and he hears the Quran being recited, and these people would be reciting the Quran all of the time. And as Basil knows, in Tuaymarat, where Murabt al-Hajj is, you hear the Quran all the time. Everywhere you go, people are reciting the Quran. And in places where people are still committed to learning the tradition and things, and a lot of ibadah, you get very profoundly affected by being in that environment. And this is 1400 years later. So in this place, this must have been something incredibly powerful, just to be in that city at that time. And even the mushrikeen would have to be aware of that. But he's lost very close people, and his uncle dies at Badr, and he swears a vengeance, Sa'ar, right? And then the other one, Ubay al-Jumahi, he was very discourteous to the Prophet ﷺ. The other ones were fine with him, but one of the things that he says is he tells me he has a horse named Al-Aud, which means the one that's going to come back. So, in other words, I'm going to have my karra for Badr. And he swears by Allah that he'll kill the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ says, no, ana qatiluka, I'm going to kill you. And so, now, another interesting event that happens, Safwan and Umair. They're the two nephews of Ubay. And Safwan's father is the one who was killed, Umayyah. And they're lamenting. And one of them says to the other, there's no good in life anymore. All our leaders have been killed. Woe is us. And the other one says that by Allah, I would go now and kill the Prophet Muhammad if I wasn't worried about these cares, worldly cares. So Safwan tells him, go ahead, I'll take care of everything. He calls him on and he says, then I'll set out. So he gets out, he sets out, and he goes to Medina. And when he comes there, the Prophet ﷺ, he comes in, and Omar sees him, and he's worried because he has his sword. And Omar asks him what he wants, and he said that he wants to see the Prophet ﷺ for this ransom. And the Prophet ﷺ greets him and then asks him, why have you come? And he tells him why. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, then why are you wearing a sword? Because this obviously wasn't the etiquette. He's dressed for war, and he's coming for something else. And so he curses the sword, لَعْنَ اللَّهَ السِّيُوفِ, they've ruined us and all our leaders. And then the Prophet ﷺ asks him again. He won't tell him. He says, tell me the truth. And he still won't tell him. And then finally the Prophet ﷺ tells him, what about that conversation you had with Safwan in the Baha? Now Umar, he knows nobody was there except for, and even nobody could have gotten ahead to tell him that. So he sees the truth of it, and he swears and said, we used to call you a liar, and now I realize this, and he becomes a Muslim. Now he goes back, and actually he converts a lot of people when he goes back. He was a powerful man. He converts a lot, and Safwan's furious, right? Now another event, Abu al-As, because of the prohibition now, Zainab, the Prophet demands that Zainab is returned to Medina to be with the Muslims. And they agree with that. She's pregnant. When he goes back, he sends her with Kinana. And they leave in broad daylight. And this is an affront to the Quraysh, because now they're totally humiliated. The Prophet ﷺ is making demands on them. See, and this is where, we're the ones who make demands on you. You don't tell us what to do, we tell you what to do. And now everything's being reversed. So they're in a state of humiliation, and Abu Sufyan and his men go out, and they actually come to the place, and this man Habbar goes up with his sword, and he's threatening Kinana. Kinana takes out his arrows, and he's not Muslim. He's doing this, he was given something by his brother to do, and he has to honor that. And this is again about words and honor. And he says, I'm going to kill all of you unless you leave us. And they explain to him. Now they're telling the real reason. You can't, just don't leave in broad daylight. Come back, wait, till the tongues stop talking, and then take her out at night. And so he agrees to that. They go back. She has an abortion. She aborts the child. And it's blamed on Habbar, on the fright that was done to her. And this happens during the time of Umar Khalifa. It's interesting because the ghurra, which is a diya on aborted children. If you cause an abortion, you have to pay a blood price. And Umar once asked for a woman, demanded that she come to his presence about something or other, and she aborted. And some said she was so afraid of Umar. And so he didn't know whether, he asked his Sahaba, should I pay? Whether I did it. So obviously fear is a reason why women can miscarriage. And this is what happened. She miscarried her child. And she eventually goes out, and Zayd takes her back to Medina. And she's united with the Prophet ﷺ. Now we're moving into a new phase. And this is the treachery of the Jews in Medina. If we remember, early on in Medina, there was a treaty made. And this treaty was signed and agreed on by the Jews and by the Muslims and by the people in Medina. They agreed to support the Prophet ﷺ. They would defend him, and the Prophet agreed to defend them in case of any persecution or any oppression. And so they've agreed to this. But now Bani Qaynuqa is really, they're upset. And you have to understand the psychology of this. These people were all hoping that they were going to go out to Badr and they were going to get wiped out. This was their hope. So you can imagine these people's anger when the Muslims come back totally elated, really in a state of feeling now that really they're feeling this divine nasr from Allah, this victory that Allah is giving them. They go back, and there's the Jews watching all of this, and they're furious. And this is what happens with Bani Qaynuqa. Now there's another Jew here, Ka'b al-Ashraf, Ibn al-Ashraf, who his father was a Ta'i from the tribe Bani Ta'i, Hatim al-Ta'i, the famous. But his mother was from Bani Nadir. And because in the Jewish it's a matrilineal line, they take their nasab by the women. So if your mother is a Jewess, technically you're a Jew. Whereas it's not true if your father is and your mother's not. So he considers himself a Jew, and they actually honor him. Now, he's a poet. He's a very proficient poet. He's wealthy, and he's extremely handsome. So he has a lot of leadership qualities, and they look up to him. But he cannot stand the Muslims, and he really despises the Prophet ﷺ. And so he writes poetry against them. He actually goes to Mecca to really get them riled up with his poetry. And he wants them to go back, you're Quraysh, and what are you doing, and this and that. So this is war. What he's done is, this is war against the Prophet ﷺ. And he was part of the people that made treaties with the Prophet. So this is seen as a khiyana. It's treachery, right? And this is where these people now, in this crucible, they are beginning to really, we're seeing who's who. People are beginning to really now display their colors. And Ka'b does some wretched things. And so the Prophet ﷺ, now Bani Qaynuqa as well, is beginning to talk. And so the Prophet ﷺ goes to them and he tells them, look, we made a treaty, and you're not abiding by the treaty. And they told him, they were actually brave Jews. In fact, they were called Ashja' al-Yahud, Bani Qaynuqa. They were known for their shaja'a amongst the Arabs, which is not true of the other Bani Nadir and Bani Qurayza. They were known to be, and they were very proud of their courage. And they told the Prophet ﷺ, look, you fought the Quraysh, right? These city dwellers that really don't know anything about war. And so don't let it go to your head. Because if you come up against us, we'll really show you how to fight. So that's a threat now. In other words, they're threatening him. So now they've broken their treaty. So the Prophet ﷺ goes and he tells his companions that we're marching on Bani Qaynuqa. Ubadah ibn Samit and Ubay and Abdullah ibn Ubay are both, they had a hilf with Bani Qaynuqa in the Jahiliyyah. Abdullah, the munafiq, goes to Ubadah and he says, we have to support Bani Qaynuqa. They supported us in Jahiliyyah and they helped us, and now we have to support them. And Ubadah says, look, we made a treaty, and that treaty has abrogated all the previous treaties. And so we are no longer bound by those previous bonds. We're bonded to the Prophet ﷺ. And Abdullah is really upset. He disagrees with him, and he actually marches out and realizes nobody's going to follow him anymore. He's got the handful of hypocrites. And they're all lukewarm people anyway. They're neither here nor there. They're just waiting always to see the dawa'ir. Who's it going with or against? So he realizes he can't do anything. Well, Bani Qaynuqa was depending on some support. So here they are in their military fortress, and they're surrounded now by the Prophet ﷺ and several hundred of his companions, and they wait 15 days. They don't have any more supplies, and they finally surrender unconditionally. And the Prophet ﷺ is, obviously because this is treachery, is thinking about killing these people for their treachery. Abdullah ibn Ubay pleads with him not to do that. And so the Prophet actually forgives them, but banishes them from that area, and they actually move just outside of Syria, just on the border of the Syria, and they actually they're destroyed, halaku, after that. They don't survive that experience. So that's one group now that is taken care of. Now the next thing that happens is Ka'b al-Ashraf. He actually precedes it, and you're going to get different versions of what comes first. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Man yurihuni min Ka'b al-Ashraf?" Who's going to give me repose from Ka'b ibn al-Ashraf. And he, immediately one of the Ansar, Muhammad ibn Maslama, stands up and he says, I will do it, Ya Rasulullah. And then a group of other Ansar say that they will also help him. And then they tell the Prophet, the only thing is, because he is in his fortress now and he knows that there's a war against that he's worried. And so they say, we can only do it by lying, and we can't do that. The Prophet ﷺ tells him and gives us a qa'idah, al-harbu khid'a, or khud'a, or khada. Harb is trickery. And this is how Sun Tzu's book, The Art of War, begins. This is an ancient principle in warfare. The nature of war is that it's deception. War is deception. In other words, the Prophet ﷺ is telling them that this is a permissible time. In times of war, one can lie, because it's an actual part of warfare. I mean, to kill a human being is the worst thing you can do. But in war, it becomes acceptable, because that's the nature of war. So things that in normal times are completely unacceptable, in times of war become acceptable because of the nature of war. And Islam, although it limits, right, things that we can do, like you cannot mutilate, you don't kill children, you don't kill women, you don't kill religious people, you don't kill old people, you're not supposed to kill livestock or cut down fruit trees or burn crops and these type things. So there are rules, just like even the kuffar have their Geneva Convention, the rules. They recognize that there's certain things. I mean, whether they practice them or not, the fact that they recognize that there's things that you should and shouldn't do in war is a sign that these are universal understandings. And so they go out, Muhammad Maslama goes, and he meets Ka'b, and he knows him. They knew each other. And he said, you know, Ka'b, because the Arabs are actually against, a lot of Arabs are against the Prophet, and they are having troubles. The Muslims in Medina are having troubles, and they're having troubles within the city, outside the city. And he tells him, you know, we made an oath with this man, but really it's just causing us trouble. We're all suffering. Can we borrow? I need to borrow some money and food from you. And Ka'b says, didn't I tell you all this was going to happen, and you didn't listen to me? And he said, well, I'll only loan it to you if you give me your women as a, what do they call it? Rahan. The rahan. No. What do they call it?
Collateral.
What you put down when you get a loan, you have to put something with it? Collateral. No, it's not collateral. There's a word for it, technical term. English. It's a rahan. Rahan. It's a deposit. It's like a deposit. Exactly. It's a deposit. Right? Like you go to the pawn shop, you have to give them something. They call that collateral? Huh. Oh. There you go. Yeah. It's refundable, hopefully, if it's the women, right? So he tells him, there's another word, I just can't think of it right now. The word I'm thinking of.